we are going to go over the slides at which you looked in a class. So let's look at the skeletal muscle. These are just fragments of the long fiber-like cells. Notice a few things. What are these? Nuclei, not one, multiple nuclei. If you look at all the cells, and again, these are just fragments of the cells, you will notice that nuclei are also pushed kind of to the sides of the cells, towards the edges of the cells. They are not outside of the cells though. Another thing, notice the lines. We call skeletal muscles striated muscles because of those lines. These are protein fibers called actin and myosin fibers, which allow for extension and contractions. Let's look now at smooth muscle tissue, which you will find in organs such as outside of the intestines, esophagus, stomach, surrounding of the arteries. These muscles are needed so that function is taking place, so that food, whenever you eat it, for example, moves down through peristalsis, movement of intestines. Compare smooth muscles to the skeletal muscles which you had just looked at. Notice the fibers are right here. So this is a fiber. There's another fiber here. Another fiber. What comes to your mind? They are shorter. That's right, they're shorter than skeletal muscles, and the nucleus is pretty large, and it's in the center. Those cells have usually one or two nuclei. This one has two. Nucleus is located at the center. Here, for example, is a cross-section of a vessel passing through the muscles. We know that blood must be flowing or make contact with the muscle cells, with the fiber cells, so oxygen can be transported, diffused. All right, let's look at the next one. This is a cardiac muscle. Notice that a cardiac muscle is like a smooth muscle. It's kind of a hybrid between the smooth and the skeletal muscles. What you notice is that it's a nucleus in the center, but also pay attention to the fibers being kind of branched out, and they're not parallelly aligned like in skeletal muscles. Another thing are those lines, but also intercalated discs right here. Nevertheless, what I'd like you to think of is overall shape of the muscles. The cells are elongated, fiber-like, and now you have a really nice comparison of all three. Next tissue is an artery and vein. These are actually vessels. Notice the difference between a vein, which is it's more collapsible. We talked about it. And this is, look at the wall. It's much thinner than the wall of the artery, which is also more round. It's more flexible. It's more springy-like. Epithelium, small intestine. One attention I'd like you to pay to are the villi. Villi are folds in the small intestine, and we talked about why those folds are necessary. They increase the surface area, therefore absorption of, we know that all the major nutrients, sugars, lipids, as well as proteins, are digested in the small intestine and absorbed there. Therefore, we need to increase the surface area, so the absorption is very efficient. We get what we want. And notice the small cells right here. Notice how they have kind of shape of the column. They're elongated, and those circles are nothing else but nuclei. Look, elongated shape, and nucleus is kind of at the bottom of the cell. This is large intestine. What is missing is no villi. Yes, we have so-called cliffs right here, but there is no villi. Cells also columnar. Look, this is one cell. This is another cell right next to it. This is a cell. Again, nucleus is it's pushed to the bottom kind of, and the shape of the cells are columns. We also have some cells which secrete, because we know that digestion is happening in the intestine, so all the enzymes are absolutely necessary and they're constantly produced or secreted. Okay, now this is epithelium coming from the cheek cell. The cells are dislodged. Notice irregular shape, kind of irregular, but you could stack them up if you'd like to. What is missing obviously is the cell wall, because we're looking at animal cells. All the cells here come from animals, but definitely nucleus right here in the center and surrounding cytoplasm with cytoskeleton. All right. This is the difference between small and large intestine. Just to compare, look, no villi in large intestines. We have crypts and villi, folds in small intestine. We have, these are tissues, so notice how we have different kinds of layers of cells. The ones which we looked at and I pointed to are right here. Then underneath we have cells which secrete, which have glands or secrete substances into ducts, almost like they form walls of little vessels with little hoses secreting different enzymes. Okay, here's connective tissue, blood. Notice the color of erythrocytes, which are red blood cells, on this particular slide is not the same as we looked at. Ours were red. Notice lack of a nucleus. These are round, kind of round disc shaped, like they're kind of flattened. If you can imagine a bowl, that's the shape of a cell. It's very helpful for flow of the cells through the vessels. In the center of this bowl, we have hemoglobin, which is binding to oxygen as well as carbon dioxide and carries it in and out of the cells. Look at this. That's a white blood cell, which we also call lymphocytes. It's one of the many kinds of white blood cells. It's much larger, and yes, it does have a nucleus. All right. Connective tissue cartilage. This is a cell, notice nucleus. That's another cell, notice nucleus. Another cell, nucleus in the center. We have plenty of cells here, but what I'd like you to pay attention to is the space or matrix in between. Intercellular space is filled with different types of collagen, proteins, fibers, and other substances which are produced by the cells and secreted outside through the cell membrane. We know that consistency of the cartilage is different in blood, for example, or any other tissue. If you touch a heart, if you touch intestine, if you touch a stomach, it will feel different. It's a little bit more. It's a harder substance, not as hard as a bone though. Right here, these are osteocytes. An osteocyte is a cell of a bone. Right here is one, another one, another one, another one. And again, these are protrusions leading out. Obviously, the blood and nutrients, everything is needed in a cell. Cell is alive, bone is alive, but I'd like you to pay attention to the space outside. These are again collagen and other proteins and inorganic substances collected in the bone and a matrix, making it really hard. These channels are blood vessels. The blood vessels are passing through. This is a cross section. Imagine that there is a hose and you cut a very, very small cross section of it. This is what it would be. Plenty of osteocytes or cells in the bone and very spacious matrix taking up a lot of space. Nerves right here. this is a nerve cell. Uh, this is its shape. We have a nucleus right in the center. This cell is coming from cerebrum and cerebellum. And those cells, we know that nerves need to conduct electric impulses. So the cells have kind of like extensions, tiny, 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 tiny fibers. They're not fibers, obviously, they're parts of the cells, which conduct impulses, and they sometimes can be very long. We call them dendrites and axons. Long alveoli. Notice this is an alveolus capillaries, a capillary, right? We need blood to take up oxygen and distribute oxygen to the other cells in the body, and bring in carbon dioxide, which diffuses to alveolus and eventually goes into bronchi tube. This is a magnification which we did not look at under our microscopes, because we don't have such powerful microscopes. But notice here are actually alveoli cells right here. This is one, this is another one. And red blood cells you definitely see in the surrounding capillaries. This is where the exchange of gases through the cell membrane of the alveolar cell are taking place. All of these are capillaries right here. You can recognize disc-shaped red blood cells. And this is where oxygen and air actually is coming in, alveolar space. All right, liver. Liver produces, this is actually a cross-section of a bile duct, and I hope you recall that the function of the bile is to emulsify lipids before they're being digested by lipase and duodenum in the small intestine. And very interestingly, again, notice the column-like shape of the cells, large nucleus. Why do you think the cells have such large nucleus? Obviously, they produce substances which are then secreted into the duct of the bile duct. This is called bile duct, and led eventually into small intestines. And we have all other cells right here. These are hepatocytes. Notice large nucleus. Large nucleus. We see nucleoli here too. One nucleolus, nucleus. Very active cell. You can tell it because nuclei are pretty large. And pancreas. Again, the function of the pancreas is produce and secrete different enzymes, different hormones like insulin and glucagon, which participate in metabolism of sugars. Again, notice really large nucleus with nucleolus. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you in class. Make sure you listen, you watch, and update your notes. Thank you.